Well, hello there, friend. How's it going, mate? Welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. As always, I do hope you're doing well. I genuinely do hope that. And welcome back to Chelsea News. Today, we are discussing a whole bunch of things, as per the usual in a transfer window. We're reacting on certain elements of transfers, mainly outgoings, of course, as we wait for potentially Simons and Garnacho. But exits, high-profile exits, desirable assets like Kungu and Jackson. And then, of course, you got your Sterlings and your Chilwells in between. A lovely gesture from Chelsea regarding the families of Diogo Jota and Andre Silva. And Jamie Carragher has been at it again, slagging off Chelsea. Well, look, there's been lots of to and fro's, back and forths with Carragher and Chelsea fans. And he's at it again. So we'll talk about that. Guys, welcome on back. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, as always, for supporting this content. A little gentle, soft reminder that many of you who watch aren't subscribed. So if you feel like, you know what, Jan, you are closing on 200k, I'm going to be that guy. Or gal. Probably guy. Like this time, I'm going to subscribe. Let's just do it. Subscribe. Let's get over the line. Let's get into it. Alright, so first of all, this article regarding Diogo Jota and Andre Silva is coming from Adam Crafton and Mario Cortegana, I think that's how you pronounce it, on The Athletic. Chelsea will use a portion of the Club World Cup bonuses paid to players to make a financial donation to the family of Diogo Jota and Andre Silva. The West London club were crowned champions of FIFA's newly expanded tournament, of course, in July, defeating PSG 3-0 in the final. Tottenham. If you know, you know. At the end of the final at the MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. And, of course, we earned about $115 million dues. Chelsea have subsequently allocated $15.5 million fund to be distributed equally between the players who represented Maresca's side during the tournament, with a decision made jointly between the club and the players that an equal payment will also be made to Jota's family. The overall value of each portion tallies more than 500k before it's subjected to currency conversion from dollars to pounds, alongside relevant employer costs, taxes, and security costs. Of course, there was the tragic passing of Diogo Jota and his brother in a car accident. It was a reminder of the details of that. There's been a memorial sculpture at Anfield, lots of touching tributes since the tragic incident, and really nice gesture from Chelsea. It's just a nice thing to do. I'm sure Liverpool are doing everything they can to look after the families, the families of Jota and his brother, and it's just a nice gesture to see a different club do it. I'm hesitant to say a rival club because rivalry shouldn't really come into this sort of thing, but it's a nice sort of heartwarming thing in football, which can be so adversarial, and it's nice. It's a nice story. So, wanted to reflect on that, and before we get into transfers, let's talk about something less palatable, Jamie Carragher. Now, we have beginning to get this sort of densely illustrious relationship with the Scouser. I mean, maybe it's because ever since Zola tore him inside out all those years ago, he's held a grudge. I don't know. But look, he's come out over and over and over, criticising the owners, criticising the structure, criticising everything about Chelsea in terms of its new hierarchy. It's funny, isn't it? Like, he'd never... It's almost... I know it's vogue. It has been vogue these last 2.5 years, or however long it's been. 3 years to slag off the new Chelsea owners that are trying to do things a bit differently. It's funny because lots of them are critical of Chelsea's previous ownership, it being a Russian oligarch and, potential geopolitical ties, etc. And you'd think, all right, well now, these owners are just like your owners. They're they're a consortium of American businessmen, and they come in with a different vision, trying to do things differently. So, just another reason to hate on them. Of course, we've seen the montages of Jamie Carragher, saying, players have got to stop signing for Chelsea. They're not a young and exciting team. At the beginning of last season, a season where Chelsea were the youngest team in Premier League history. So I'd say young, part ticked off, Jamie. That's categorical, that's fact. Exciting, well, got, when no one was giving us a chance for top 5, we got top 4. We won the Conference League in style, which was about par, but we still did it in style. And then talking about exciting, how about beating the European champions 3-0 in the Club World Cup final? I think you'd have to say that it's categorically young and exciting. So proven wrong before. He's been proven wrong before. He'd go on to say, relatively recently, of course, he speaks a lot on the overlap, the Gary Neville-led Sky Sports-backed project, or Sky Bet-backed project, bleeding into new media. He said, I don't think Chelsea are any better this summer than they were last summer. They're not going to do any better. He says they might do the same, as in, top 5 or whatever, but not any better. Which, again, is just needlessly trying to be contrary, because Chelsea objectively are better. Because, you'll have the same good signings. We've gone into the Club World Cup with the new signings catching fire, with Cole Palmer, finding insane form again. Bringing in the likes of Delap and Joao Pedro and, new wide attackers. And, yeah, we are objectively better, deputy backup for Marc Cucurella, which was hugely important, for Dario Sugo from, Caicedo. They're our 2 best players last season that were being overcooked. Now we have good deputies and understudies to them. Chelsea are objectively better. So it's just being contrary to, for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, is he just know what he's doing? Is he deliberately being a knob because he knows it's, it's rage bait, as it were, he's getting clicks? Or is he backed himself into a corner where he's doing it for a sense of, ego and identity, like he's sort of taken on this role unconsciously and he feels like he has to fulfill it in the theatre of football punditry? Do you know what I mean? I don't think he's dumb, Carragher. I don't even dislike him that much, to be honest. He's done some pretty dumb stuff. Of course, there was the controversy with the abhorrent act in the car that he probably should have gotten fired. But hey, everyone gets, I'm not against second chances. Of course, he's on the American panel show where he came out with something quite sensational about Kate Abdo not being faithful to her husband. And it was very, very awkward. And I thought, again, he's cooked. He's cooked. He can't come back from that. He came back. He came back to chat all kinds of breeze about Chelsea. And now he's come out again. And look, this is fine. It's a game of opinions. It's a subjective take. But Chelsea, who, of course, won their European competition last campaign and, rather spectacularly won the Club World Cup. That cannot be undermined, yeah? Because of how good the opposition teams were in it. This is not the Conference League. This is PSG, Man City, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. Do you know what I mean? Inter, all teams that really, really wanted to win it. And to the point where they were getting into fights when they were losing it. So this is a hugely impressive thing. He said, now Chelsea don't qualify out of the league phase in the Champions League. Bearing in mind, you need to finish in the top 16. Top 8 for automatic qualification. You need to finish in the top 16 in the table. To the second 8 is the playoffs. And he's saying Chelsea won't get past that. What is this? Why is this agenda? Look, I'm looking at the comments here. I haven't watched the clip for context because honestly, I can't really stomach it. What's his deal? Whatever, I rarely, sort of break into this element of football media. You know me, I'm pretty objective. I have a bit of fun. But it's a bit like, just shut up, bro. Do you know what I mean? He'll have to... The thing is, Chelsea have a good chance of qualifying from the league phase. I think we will. Call me a completely biased Chelsea fan, but I think the Club World Cup champions have a chance of finishing in the top 16 of the Champions League phase. Maybe that's a radical opinion. And then, qualifying for a playoff should they have to play one. That's my opinion. And he will just, shake it off again and find something else to slag us off about. But yeah, this is football therapy for me, guys, and I wanted to just reference that. Alrighty then. Let's talk about some transfers then, shall we? Right. Interesting. There is NewcastleWorld.com, a Newcastle-based publication, talking about Nico Jackson. It's interesting this, because I've spoken about Nico as what I would deem as like a sort of, a peasant. I think it'd be really good for Newcastle. We already saw on The Athletic that sort of data that presents him as having the most involvements in counter-attacking actions with ball carrying and counter-attacking goals, excuse me. So, and there's a lot of that in Newcastle. So I do think he'd be very, very appropriate for them. The Jordan Cronin of writes on this article, the prospect of signing Nico Jackson divided the Newcastle recruitment team just a few weeks ago, but that stance appears to be softened. Jackson is emerging now as one of the leading candidates to replace Isak if he is sold. Now, I think he would be a great option for them, considering how poor pre-season has been for Newcastle, considering how worrying it's been for them to be able to bring in a player that is young. He's younger than Isak, that has got, experience in the Premier League 2 seasons, that is probably still performing at a high level, but I actually think a new environment would do Jackson really well. I think he'd be a great option personally, and beggars can't be choosers. I think he'd probably suit Newcastle better than he would suit, Man United, who he was being linked with. I think he'd also suit Aston Villa, so I'm not going to say it's more than them, but I think it's a great option. Of course, it's a little bit bittersweet as Chelsea fans, because I like Jackson. I've been very happy with him broadly for a couple of years, as you guys know. I think for the money we got him for how he's contributed, he's been far from perfect, but I always thought he could get better, so therefore I've been happy with him. But now, looking at Delap and Joao Pedro in the Club World Cup and our fleeting pre-season, I think a lot of us, and football's fickle, it changes, right? But I think a lot of us are like, yeah, it's fine. He can go, he can stay, but he can go. But of course, selling him to Newcastle would mean essentially we're like completing the gateway of Isak going to Liverpool, which isn't ideal, is it? That's not the one. We don't really want that to happen. But if the dominoes fall in such a way, I think Chelsea would do it. Look, to say you don't want to strengthen Liverpool is to say maybe part of you thinks you can challenge for the title. And as much as Carragher might laugh at that, who knows? Who knows? So look, I do think this still happens. I think Chelsea are relaxed in, excuse me, in many ways with this transfer window. Jackson could, I think there's a 75% chance he's sold. Right, let's move on to the next player. And that is Christopher Kungu. Fabrizio Romano has said Christopher Kungu is one of the main names on Bayern's shortlist. He is considered an ideal player to cover several positions, but the deal depends on cost now. Several clubs have asked for Christopher Kungu this summer. It's an open situation. That's good. So several clubs are interested. We know what Leipzig and Bayern off the bat. So, several clubs have asked. I reckon some of them have been and gone, and what I mean by that is Man United. Now they've signed all their attackers. Possibly Forest. There was, gentle talks, and maybe he would have considered that. Maybe Morgan Rogers has stayed. They made a couple of signings. They're in the Europa League now, which is, let's remember, it's a competition above what Kungu just played at Chelsea in the Conference League. But let's be fair, he wants to be playing in the Champions League. He's absolutely a Champions League level player if deployed correctly and appropriately by his club. I think Bayern Munich would work. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think Leipzig, there's just this element of going back, which a player at his late 20s, he wants to find the move now. The 5-year deal, sign a 5-year lucrative deal at an elite club that always plays in the Champions League, that goes for titles. I think he's good enough for that. He deserves that. I don't think he would go back. And when I say go back, I mean PSG, I mean Leipzig. So if a deal at Bayern Munich can be done, I think that would be great for them. There was talks about, but Voltemade, they were talking about even Nico Jackson going. I don't know, man. I think it would be ideal, but we'll have to see whether it happens. But what about Chelsea's incomings? By the way, I could mention outgoings as well. The outgoings, Gilchrist is going to go for cheap. Some other youngsters. Chilwell's desperate to find a club. Tuchel has got onto the phone to Chilwell saying, look, go to a good club, play every game, every week, and give me the opportunity to call you up for England, because we know Tuchel loves Chilwell. And he's England are a bit light on that left-hand side, so we'll see what happens. For me, it would have to be mid-table or above. I don't know if he'd go to Europe. Sterling, God knows. But let's talk about some incomings. Of course, the two, if we are to believe they're not going to sign a centre-back, they're going to trust who's within. You know, that Badiashile will come back and deputise well as the left footer. That Trev Chalobah can play on the left-hand side. That Fofana can come back as well and rotate. Even though Hato, I think, should be deployed exclusively as a left-sided, a left back. I don't want to confuse him too much with instructions, but maybe he can do it all. We'll see what happens there. Incomings, Xavi Simons. Now, this is a really interesting one because he does, like Garnacho, he does want to come to Chelsea. He is waiting. And actually, Chelsea are properly in dialogue with Leipzig now. It was a sort of loose conversation before. We knew the player wanted to come. I don't think there was any animosity between Chelsea and Leipzig. There was just certain reasons while holding off before legitimately, proper negotiations in terms of a transfer. By all accounts, that has now begun. Chelsea do want to let players go. I'm a little bit, before signing him, I did think Dewsbury Hall and Joao Felix going would be right, your Xavi Simons can come in and still try and get Kungu out. But it does seem like they want to get Kungu out and then Simons in, which I kind of get it. It's safe. You're in a position where you're not desperate. Why don't you just do things sensibly? Do you know what I mean? Make sure the squad position's free. Make sure the money's there. I kind of endorse it. I've got no issue with it. And Simons doesn't need to be ready for Palace. Do you know what I mean? We've got a good team. We've been training. He just comes into the, a couple of weeks in, gets ready, rotates in, and by the end of the season, maybe will be a starter. We'll see what happens there. Garnacho is an interesting one. He's doing social media posts. He's essentially just waiting for Chelsea. He's just waiting. He said to Man United, I want to go to Chelsea, or nowhere, basically. And he's not training with the team. They might reintegrate him should a deal not happen. But it does seem like, in the same way Chelsea are very happy to reintegrate Jackson if he's not sold, I don't think it's as happy and easy as that. Jackson sort of said to Chelsea, I think you should sell me. And Chelsea have probably gone, yeah, we'll probably sell you. But if it doesn't happen, we'll use you. We like you, man. You might not be first choice, which you don't like. And we don't want you to be unhappy. And we might have to find a sale down the line. But it won't be like, doing an Alexander Isak, as it were, or Victor Gyökeres in terms of forcing a move. I think there'll be relative calm there. But Garnacho, he's just literally waiting for Chelsea. He's doing social media posts with those timer emojis. He's just got his feet up. Chelsea believe they're in such a strong negotiating position. They want to buy him for 30. Man United want at least 50. Chelsea believe now they've spent so much money, Seshko and Burmo, Cunha, that as the window runs down, there's even a talk of that sensational purchase for Carlos Baleba, which would be 100 million. If they can scrape together some money and they think they can make it happen, I think they will just take what Chelsea give. Maybe Chelsea give a little bit of wriggle room. Maybe we go to 35 million and 5 of add-ons, so 40 all in for Garnacho, and Chelsea might still think that's excellent value, or maybe they do 30 to 35. Chelsea, regardless, Chelsea buy Garnacho, they will think they've got a bargain, and Man United will be like, wow, at least we've just got money. Remember, this isn't Man United selling Antony or Rasmus Højlund that are making colossal losses. He's not an academy. They did sign him from Atletico Madrid for a few million quid, so that gets lost in the wasp with Garnacho. Everyone thinks he's just, spawned as a 4-year-old at Carrington. No, they bought him from Atletico Madrid in Spain for a few million quid, but they'll make a huge profit on him. I think he's homegrown because he joined the academy and went through to the first team. So maybe there is a pure profit element there, even though they bought him. I'm not entirely sure. You can fact check there. But yeah, they're going to be timesing their investment by 6 on Garnacho, or even at 30 million quid. They just believe as an isolated asset, in better times, him playing and being happy with the manager, yada, 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 he could and should be a 70 million pound player. Now, I don't know if I agree with that. Maybe a 50 million pound player, but I wouldn't want to spend 50 million quid on him. I'd be very happy for 30 million. There we have it. Alright guys, let me know your thoughts. Please leave them down in the comments section below. If you've got this far, thank you for joining me. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And a gentle reminder that there's daily content on the second channel, Football Yannick. We'll be laughing at Tottenham today. So make sure you get over there. We're really very much closing in on 20,000 subs on my side project, and I love it. So thank you for subscribing to Football Yannick as well. All right, mate. See you soon. Peace.